thank you so much, Vonage, for hosting and for the drinks and the food. So again, please, let's say a big thank you to Vonage. For those who don't know me, I'm Carl. I started MILAS with Barry. MILAS stands for Mobile Engineering Leadership at Scale. We also run Laundroid, and I think every time I've been running Laundroid events, I always thought to myself, okay, we need to do something a bit around leadership and the mobile community around leadership. So this is how it started. How many events have we done so far? 4, 5, maybe?
Five.
Every time they're a bit of a different format, trying to explore a bit what works, what doesn't. And really it's about kind of leadership, especially like in the mobile space. I run Novoda. We are a agency consultancy. We've been doing mobile stuff for close to 20 years. I think it was 18th years and 19th years anniversary on Sunday because it popped up in my calendar. So what is this tonight? Tonight, what we wanted to do is to have a panel to discuss what mobile engineering might look like in a year's time. It started really from, like every time you have any kind of roundtable conversation, any conversation with anyone today, within 5 minutes, it always turns to AI, obviously. So every single conversation, I was saying, I'm not sure to whom before, I have proper AI anxieties. Like I really feel that, the world will completely crash in a few years' time. So I'm having those kind of sessions to make sure that like I'm wrong. But in a sense, it's to create like a vision of the future that people can look up to. And I think as leaders, that's our role. We need to create visions. So, your team can follow that vision, and that vision should be realistic and grounded in what we experience today. And so in my head, I thought, okay, well, if we take a bunch of people that kind of have a degree of experience in this domain, and let's talk together what mobile might look like in a year's time, then we might come out of here with an ability to paint a better picture of the future than before this event. That's my hope. You can tell me if this is working out or not after at the pub. We have a few topics I want to touch on, so I'm going to try to, with my watch, make sure there's enough time for all topics, and make sure that everyone has their voice heard. And so the topics, this thematic, the first is, of course, around tooling, how AI is changing the tooling. The second thematic is around the team structure and size, how that might change in a year's time. Then we have specialism. Do we still require specialism given the AI tools? Then we have one specifically for trust, quality, and sovereignty. I'm quite like, are we giving too much to the big tech company? And then finally around leadership. So how do you translate all this information into a cohesive vision of the future? Okay, so that's enough for me. So I'm going to try to regulate the conversation. Please bear with me. I'm new to this type of conversation as well. But maybe we can do all a round of introduction from the panelists. I'm really excited about everyone here on the panel. And maybe you can give a very, very quick kind of 1 or 2 minute picture of what you see and what's going to happen in a year's time. But not too much, because of course we have about, let's say like 45 minutes maybe of conversation, then finish with Q&A, and then maybe at the pub. Does that all sound good? Yeah? Okay. Michael.
All right, so I start then. All right, so introducing myself. So I started in mobile in 2000. That was basically my first real job in the UK. The accent is French. I've never been able to get rid of it. Never really tried. So I've been here for 20 years. I started at Symbian before Android, before iOS, before exceptions were standardized in C++. At some point along the way, somebody tricked me into writing a book about Symbian OS C++. It has been obsolete for like 15 years by now. It took, after Google sent me the first Android, or the second Android phone to try things with, it took about 4 years after that after that before one line of my Android code was in the Play Store. That took a while. Since 2016, I've basically been in fintech and banking. I was part of the team that, in terms of banking, we don't really say launch, we say mobilize. When you launch a new bank, the initial Android team at Starling and the one at Monument Bank. And now I'm doing the chapter lead at, the Android chapter lead at TSB. The first panel ever I'm on. I've presented things alone before, this is my first panel.
Give him applause then. Yeah. We have Dutch courage.
In terms of next year, this is not going to be a very clear picture. It's a scattershot set of nuts. Things that will be the same, things that will be different, and then what we should prepare for, right? Those are the prompts you gave us. I don't think technical debt is going to be more prioritized in a year. Getting budgets approved and decided will not change materially. Job market. I think we're going toward more contracting. If we're going for smaller team and less engineers and smaller projects because everything happens faster, not really permanent people for years and years anymore, right? Technical side, I heard recently Apple is going to mandate liquid glass from next year. That's technically something that they started, but not finished yet. I don't think hardware is going to get any cheaper. That's going to be a problem for people wanting to buy phones. All right, so this one is not necessarily mobile, but maybe more embedded. AR glasses. We're going to have to target more devices. I don't know what operating systems are going to win in that area, but like to me, an AR glass is a mobile device. Battery, network, everything. What else? I should have learned this better.
That's okay. We have like a good 40 minutes to.
Good enough for now?
Yeah, good enough for now. Thank you.
Next one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So thank you very much. So my name's Tris Bates. I've been in mobile kind of since the start of certainly Apple operating systems when it was iPhone OS. I don't know if anyone remembers that far back. But what's quite interesting, I think, is especially if you've got a fascination in technology, it drives you forward. So originally, I remember selling iPods and other gadgets at Curry's, the retail electronics store, and then sort of working from there into university, studying software engineering and getting fascinated with how the applications and software are built for these products. And then what I did from there, after going through university, is I decided I wanted to work in mobile. I wanted to work building iPhone apps. And this was sort of 2008 when I started my university degree. And at that point, you had to convince people why you're using a smartphone. They're like, what, hasn't got a stylus? You know, it hasn't got Microsoft Office on it at that point. So it's quite an uphill battle. But I persevered in that, went through a degree, and built my final year project porting a VB6 education game from Windows to the original iPad, which is absolutely brutal doing that, if you've done that. So go to hell in terms of code. So from there, I found that I liked mobile engineering, quickly landed a job as a graduate mobile engineer, and then progressed up into more senior roles, and then engineering management, then head of engineering roles, and then sort of settled in with head of mobile roles, which is where I am at the moment at NewDay. But it's been a fantastic journey. I think the scale bit fascinates me because sharing code across different projects, whether it's gambling apps, fintech apps, consumer apps, it's quite difficult. So I've been working in that area in specialism for a long time now. And one of the things I kind of quite keen on is communities, especially like the Milas community that Carl and Barry organise, but also NS London, which is quite a popular Apple development group. So I work alongside Tony and a couple of other organisers organising events at big venues like Apple and Google. And we recently featured by Apple for our work on that. So not bragging, but yes, we got it. So I'm really proud of the work we're doing there on that. In terms of the future of mobile AI, I think we're going to see a lot of change. And I think our industry's been a bit repetitive. We're just, the BAU backlog is adopting new operating system features and APIs. There's not been a kind of major improvement there. So what I'm kind of seeing there is AI is definitely part of our day-to-day work. What I found quite interesting going to America recently is that I would say London and so the tech communities are a level above what I've seen in Silicon Valley in America. The stuff we're talking about today isn't commonplace in the Bay Area. There will be obviously companies where it is and where it's being built, but it's not everywhere. So I'd say there's a lot of amazing stuff here. So in the next 12 months, we're going to see a focus on intent-driven navigation and stopping thinking about your application as one single page screen that you navigate to other screens from. So surfacing your features to agents and agents becoming a more common way of interacting with that would be quite interesting. I think Siri AI, having used that on my phone, it's AI for your mum and your dad and every person. It perhaps doesn't have the branding and the stigma of being cool, but it's been an eye-opener for me. It just seems to work reasonably well. And so I can kind of see everyday users getting adopted into that. And then I guess in terms of technology frontier, agile ways of working, DORA metrics, it's all going to be ripped up with new ways of working. And I think a lot of the people in this room are in charge of some of those decisions or the thought leadership around what could be next. So I'd encourage you to not look at a book on this subject because the book hasn't been written. As you were saying, mobile phones and laptops are going to get even more expensive, unfortunately. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Tris. Good.
Hello, I'm Corey Latislaw. So I, early in my career, went broad, but then I fell in love with Android about 2010 when it was completely the underdog. And I was working at Comcast Interactive Media, so I built the first streaming application. And I was really hooked because millions of people used that application, and I really enjoyed shipping stuff at that scale. I stayed there for a while, and then I've been to various businesses. I've been at consulting firms and also product companies. Pinterest, I was doing the head of mobile thing there, and then I moved to the UK about 9 years ago. At that time, I decided to go broader because, to your point, like we've been doing the same stuff in mobile for quite some time. It's basically fancy JSON rendering for most of the applications we build. So like there is definitely time for shake-up in that space. And I do agree that Agile is maybe not dead, but definitely shifting. And I've been feeling like it's going to do that for quite some time. And now AI has really shown that we need to rethink a lot of the stuff. And there's still going to be some principles there that we'll definitely take forward. What else? So the last 4 years, I've been focused heavily on AI as kind of the agitator at all the businesses I've been at. So I built like a Gen AI lab at the consulting firm I was at for 6 years. At Trainline, I helped them build their first MCP and then shift to GEO, which I think is now called AEO or something. I don't know, but basically the new SEO for showing up well in AI engines. And now I'm building an agent harness, which I'm happy to walk you through all the details, at Just Eat and helping them move to an agentic first software engineering flow. As far as what it looks like in a year, well, I've basically been using my project as find all the edges in a largish business, what keeps us from doing agentic first workflows. Turns out there's a lot of them. I already knew that going in, but now I have a really long document that details them all. But in a year, if you don't reconfigure your businesses to have different workflows that aren't constantly stopping to get input from humans, then you're not really going to be able to just drop in agentic workflows. So you have to reconfigure the business and think about the different workflows and stuff and how you want to actually make things work end to end. Because, for example, at Just Eat Takeaway, sometimes we have to wait like a week or two for ADRs and PRs to be reviewed and stuff like that, and that's just not going to work in an agentic workflow. So you have to find those human gates, automate them where you can, and then make sure that if they are there, that they're providing real value. I think we're also going to see a shift to like building for agents, because right now we build software for humans so humans can maintain it. I think we're going to shift that focus to make it so that agents can maintain it. And I think we're going to see, we'll talk about team structures and stuff later, but I think we're going to see smaller, more fluid teams that are based on missions. And I already know this is happening a lot, but this last week we had citizen developers start popping up where commercial built a thing and they're like, great, I want to ship this. And now we're like, oh, okay, how do we make sure that they can actually do that? So we need to also be preparing for everybody being a builder again. And if you haven't been building with these tools, definitely go and play, because you can find the love of building again, which has been lovely for me in the last year.
Thank you, Corey.
Hello everyone, Daniele Galluccio. I'm head of engineering for Lloyds Banking Group, where I look after mobile platform engineering. Although they call us mobile frameworks, but in every other decent place we'll call us mobile platform engineering. I won't go too much into the nitty-gritty of my background, but I will just mention a couple of names like Palm Pilot, Windows Mobile, to say. That gives you a hint of how old I am. Now I look after about 16 to 20, depending on whether we count also only the internal ones or also the external ones. Different app for the groups. We serve about 28 million customers actively. So there is a lot of things to juggle at the same time. In terms of what I see changing, well, definitely, as I say, probably the thing that every developer sees, the number of PRs going up. I think in general, the rate and ease of doing proof of concept tests, experimentation, that will go up. What will stay the same is, I think, your mileage may vary depending on the line of business that you are. We are a bank. I think the vast majority of the processes will not have adopted in a year. So let's say the same struggles of, well, okay, yeah, we have a brilliant idea. We can solve it and code it in 5 minutes. It still takes 6 months to get regulatory approval, pass through all the red tape, get modern workplace to be able just to ship laptops to a different country because we have developers there. Those things, I'm afraid, will not go away. Another thing that will have to change is and that's probably more for the leaders, make sure that the workforce is ready. Coming a bit to your point, everybody will be a builder. If now is important for every developer to do a good job when they do a PR and a code review, this will be even more important when that PR will be made by someone else, and potentially they will decide by themselves whether they want to approve that or not. So I think an emphasis on system design, operational design, so not just is this code working, but how does it actually work? What does it mean once I put it in production? Because yes, it may work, but also may consume 3 times more the resources that another way of building it will be. And you will have nobody giving you a warning like, hey, are you sure you want to do that? Those are the things that I think will require a lot of attention. Another aspect also is how, that means also for me, every developer will kind of step up, every engineer will need to step up a bit, becoming a mini line manager of their own agents, and not saying doing proper performance review, but kind of in terms of, okay, am I using it in the right way? Am I getting the right results and the right quality? And if not, what should I tweak?
Thank you. Hello? Okay. So, already we hear some talking.
Wait, I forgot. I remember the most important thing in my notes. Relevant specifically for a year from now and, well, yesterday. There is a book entitled Psychology of Software Teams by Dr. Kat Hicks, became pre-orderable yesterday. I'm very much hoping we'll be talking about what we've learned from it a year from now. That's it.
What was the name?
Dr. Kat Hicks, the title of the book is Psychology of Software Teams.
Psychology of Software Teams.
Yes.
Do you think it's still going to be relevant in a year's time?
I'm hoping we'll learn a bunch of things from it, yes.
We can already hear a lot coming up, around team structure. It seems to be that, from what I'm hearing, the tendency is smaller team, more dynamic, mission-driven, which we're going to touch on. There's been a lot around like systems and some of those introductions, and even like kind of building for AI. But maybe if we start off from kind of nitty-gritty as to like applying AI, and you mentioned agentic software development, like agentic-led software development and building a harness. Maybe you can kick us off as to, Corey, where you're currently building, for what purpose and more practicality, and how does that look, let's say, a year from now? And I can kick off the first thematic.
Yeah, definitely. So basically when I joined Just Eat as head of groceries and new verticals in January, they had just been bought by a company and deprioritized groceries as a major focus for the company. It is now back as a major focus, but for the last 6 months, it hasn't been. So I had a bit of capacity. So I really wanted to get really stuck into the AI space and actually get my hands building again. So outside of work, I built an agent harness using, basically I just asked Claude constantly how to do it and put all my knowledge from my 20 years of dev into it as well. I focus very much on shift left and moving testing and security at the very requirement stage and doing test-driven development. And I was building this for myself for about a month and a half. It was a Kotlin multi-platform app for Android and iOS and web. And if you follow me on any of the socials, I do a lot of art stuff. So this is about taking photos of snippets of things that inspire me in the world and then giving me a reference photo to draw from and learn my style and stuff. So that's what I'm building. And then I kind of had it extract itself, and then I brought it into Jet. And I paired with people across the business to find basically to integrate with all their systems and continue to build out this system. I had an EM who happened to start, who didn't have a team because it was on loan somewhere else. So I kind of carved her a little team as well, and then gave them the mission of shipping real software with it. And this was after about a month of building it internally to really harden it for more enterprise grade instead of just my passion project. And then we made it work with all these different systems. We had several people who were very intimately knowledgeable about the architecture because I was quite new, so I didn't know it deep yet. So that was really helpful to have them help build that out. I also made sure I was working with a platform team because they were in charge of moving us to an agentic first software engineering methodology. But for me, I was viewing it, they're kind of more of the white tower, the abstract one, and I'm more practicing it day to day. And I viewed it as a research project that could feed whatever they're doing at scale for transformation. So we've been working very closely to continue to feed knowledge back to them. So like I said, I've identified all the human gates. I basically have built this graph of, okay, we built for an hour, and then we waited 2 weeks, and then we built for 3 hours, and then we waited. So just kind of trying to bring that to life, how our current process is very slow, and we could make it a lot faster. Were there any specific aspects in there that you wanted me to dive more into?
Maybe again, define, so you built the harness, yeah. For what reason, and when you say agentic-led development, could you just describe what that looks like? Because I think some describe it as orchestrating. Someone sits at the back and just orchestrating a set of agents. Is that what you're going for? Is that kind of the idea of a year from now, this is how it's going to look like?
Potentially. So so first the tech side and then the future side. So on the tech side, it's a Claude agent team. I have the lead, basically EM, not do anything except tell agents what to do. It spins up agents and gives them roles. I have a bunch of different roles. I have a builder, I have a reviewer, I have security researcher, I have an auditor, I have QE, I have all the different types of roles that you might find in an engineering org. I have rebuilt the software engineering lifecycle in there as well. Like I said, I shifted test-driven development and stuff all the way to the requirements phase. I have an architect who takes everything from just a sentence to a really detailed PRD and turns it into an ADR, and then fights it out with the PO and the QE to make sure it's really fleshed out. And then once they have a good plan, then they break it down to a bunch of tickets, and then all the builders, which now I'm doing the advisor pattern, so they all build it with Haiku and save me money by building it with the smaller models, but then they can always raise their hand if they need help. So that's how it works. It's basically a whole team, a whole ship software with it thing. But my business is not ready for it right now. But it's fine. It's really helpful for discovery. So that's where I found it showing the most value, because it is completely sprawling the landscape at Just Eat. So it helped them find all the different teams that they needed to talk to and start to flesh out some of the spikes you might want to do and things like that. So at least it'll be helpful for that. I envision 1 or 2 operators, maybe 3 with a swarm. They'll like build the requirements during the day collaboratively, being interviewed by the AI, and then eventually go home for the day, and then AI builds stuff and you check in on it in the morning. It's kind of what I was thinking, but I don't know. I'm experimenting with different models.
Yeah, and then you mentioned about, you said that it helps with the ability to experiment. You kind of said something along those lines in your introduction. But you also have 60 to 20 apps, which the teams around this, which might look very different in terms of deploying the picture that Corey just described. Maybe, can you describe, do you see the same behavior happening in the next, let's say, year or two in a regulated market, or do you think it's going to be much slower and the investment might go more towards the people rather than the process of agentic?
Well, where the investment will go, I think, is a very difficult question to answer. There are many layers on top of that, but let's try to unpick one by one. There are areas where definitely we can see some good advantages right now. So, for example, when we onboard a new developer and we have a sprawling, incredibly big number of repositories, and then we have AI that say, okay, what's in there? Explain that to me. What should I use this for? Give me an example. And he can go through the code and find relevant examples to that. That's incredibly useful. The other area where I can see probably the most tangible help and ROI is incident triage. So you have, yes, we have all the telemetry, we have Dynatrace, Splunk, you name it, but still we have also an incredibly complex network and infrastructure, and tracing things between 247 different systems is still not easy. But for AI, is much easier. So you point AI at something and say, hey, this pattern is going on. What do you think is the culprit? Where should I focus my investigation? And gives you like 3 options, and then you solve an incident in 20 minutes instead of 3 hours. That has a very, very big tangible value for an organization like us. What I mentioned earlier about the prototyping is because prototyping typically used to be like, well, I will mock some, response from an API that I have yet to develop. I will put some, design the best I can in 5 minutes because I want to show something to my MD or the COO, and hope that they will understand what I mean, because I cannot afford to spend 1 week just doing prototyping. And now I can instead type it, let it run for a couple of hours, and I have something like production grade looking, even if the behind the curtains is still like all cardboard and mock interfaces, but it looks much more complete. I can afford a much greater depth, and therefore I can explain the concept, and also I have the time back to, for example, decide to go deeper on the business analysis and say, okay, do more research on how many customers will that initiative actually impact. So I can focus more on the business and less on actually making the mock-ups and things.
Okay, so I kind of hear two different like stories here. I mean, like you seem to be, let's put AI as central to like driving, let's say, changes, while you seem to say like humans still drive with the help of AI, making it easier, just from the language as to like what the future is going to look like. Any of you two want to jump in here and say your
Yeah, sure. So what we've done at NewDay, so as part of my role, I've focused the team on the culture first, so adopting AI within the teams. So I've got a couple of my team in the audience. We've got Sergio and Tyve up there. Hello. So give you an example. So this year, Sergio has rolled out an AI guild in our mobile team. And the acknowledgement there is the tools are so far advanced that not everyone's knowledge has caught up. I think, Corey, you mentioned this, the business needs to catch up at like the pace here. So what we do is we're often showcasing tools and stuff we built outside of work. So it could be some examples that my team have built, CAD software, they've built booking systems, they've built all sorts of things. They're using OpenClaw, Hermes, etc. So they're building some amazing things, and they're bringing those learnings back in to show how we could use our enterprise Copilot license, for example. So that ways of working is completely transforming the team's enthusiasm. And I think one of the interesting things is that most people don't miss that meeting. So normally you struggle to get attendance in like guilds and other meetings. Everyone shows up to this meeting. Another example as well, Ty, who's up there, so he's mentoring one of his team to build automated processes to do all the release cab meetings we've got. So we've got this laborious meeting we have to do every week. We look through all the tickets, do they tally up? What changes are going out? What's the phased release strategy for the changes? And actually we're getting AI to do that now, and we're starting to build that out. But I think for me, it's all about outside in, what are the human things and where are we spending the most time, and just little bit by little bit eliminating those steps. So that's where my head's at the moment. So yeah, don't have any.
Okay, thank you. Like maybe like I'm gonna give you a bit of a provocation here. Questions like.
You're gonna get me fired, is what you're going to do.
Do you think like if you have to look again 12 months from now, like do you think the biggest advantage will come from having better mobile engineers that you train up, or are you going to spend more time on the system workflow around agents? What do you think is the growing direction that we're going to have to look at from today, looking into a years from now? Does that make sense as a question?
Specifically where I work or in the world?
Is it different answers?
Every company moves at a different speed.
True.
A year from now, some companies will have full agentic teams. In other companies, there will not be a single agent running.
Do you believe that that's going to be, I mean, if you don't have a agent running, let's say, do you think that those businesses will not fall behind?
There are many reasons why businesses fail or succeed. Like focusing on one thing it's a little bit narrow. There was an expression a while ago, I think it started at Panelist, startups fail for two reasons. Either the founders give up or they run out of money. Everything else, and the other reasons is down to those two. Startups is one thing, then you've got companies that have already IPO'd, companies that are not in the US or in the UK or in France, or are there going to be many, many agents in the various companies that exist in Africa? Don't know yet. We're all having our own bubble.
Okay, well then within your role right now, okay, where do you see the business going, let's say, or like your teams and the structure and how the teams behave differently with the tools given? Do you think it will change in a year's time compared to today?
So now we're talking very specific about the company I work in, which is in the middle of being acquired by another bigger bank. So that's a multi-year process that is disturbing many, many things. It changes things. Right now, I don't know where the Android chapter of Santander UK is yet. That information is going to be coming, but I don't have it yet. So whether there's going to be an agent anywhere writing Android code, can't tell you that either.
So you mean the speed and at which the business is going gives us...
Is not only about the speed of technology.
Okay.
You've got risk management, compliance, making sure we keep the bank running in the middle of integrating it with another bigger one. One of the company has a bad history with integration. The other one has a very good history with integrations. Too many unknowns.
And you think there's any roles within agents, including like talking about documentation, for instance, and being able to onboard people in any of that?
Oh, so I am very convinced Santander is very interested in everything agentic AI, yes. But that hasn't trickled down to my teams yet.
Okay.
I suspect a year from now we'll have a lot more information about timelines and strategies and directions, but not right now. It's just by timing.
I should have chosen 5 years from now.
I had enough. But then the precision of prediction drops down dramatically.
Okay, so if we move to like, let's say the second topic, which is around like team sizes and like the structure of a team, okay? Do you see, and happy for anyone here to jump in if you have a strong sentiment about the subject, is like, do you see the team structure changing, the size of the teams? Because I think both yourself and Corey, I think you mentioned that the future is smaller team. You even went to said that there are contractors market that will grow because you don't need the investment to long-term teams anymore. So there's this I guess the feeling of smaller team, mission-driven, will be the future of mobile development. Is that a true sentiment? Like, do you feel that that's still correct?
But isn't that a trend that started way before 2022? What company has ever said, yeah, let's double the size of the mobile team just because? Typically, companies try to do a lot more with a lot less. AI just amplified this or gave the industry another set of tools.
So you feel it's just a continuation of a trend that already existed?
Let's go with continuation acceleration, yes.
Acceleration, and the acceleration is due to AI and the tooling that AI gives you?
And the fact that there is a lot of money pushing for it.
Okay.
I mean, there are very big companies who are mandating the use of the tools. If you have to mandate it, where the staff very interested in picking them up, presumably not enough for the objectives that the company give itself.
Out of curiosity, has all your business mandated AI tools?
Mandated,
As
but
in
I
like
think there's a bit of a token drought at the moment. So I think you'll tend to find Xcode boards saying, slow down on the tokens, but where are the efficiency improvements? So you kind of got, and you're learning the tools. So I think you've got that interesting dynamic at the moment. I think in terms of
the CTO pushing it and then the CFO
pushing it,
say,
wait a second. I do think that will change in the next 5 years. I think you're already seeing you can buy Apple Mac Studios and run trillion parameter models that are actually able to do it, but it's £40,000 to do it, and they're sold out. So I think it's going to come with time. One of the interesting problems I've seen is you've got a lot more code generation. It's a lot faster. But if you've got design processes and PR review processes and audit, that hasn't got faster. So I think there's going to be some tough conversations, and I think there's going to be a blending of roles. So it won't be product versus engineering. It will be product engineers, product designers. And as I think Corey was brilliantly saying, you've got a lot of citizens wanting to ship their apps. So yeah, I see that blending a lot at the moment.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm very curious about Citizen, like that product, Citizen developers and so forth. Maybe like, again, like team sizes or like the team structure and composition will change drastically, you reckon, because of the advent of AI?
It's up to you.
Yeah, quickly finish it. Yeah, sure. I think so interesting. So at NewDay, so for instance, we've got 3 squads and then a platform support team, all roughly a similar size. But I do see sort of a flattening of actually teams working together. So maybe platform support within the feature squads and that line blurring between them. And certainly the concept of sprints and each team having its own sprint. I think when now the sprint iteration time is hours and days, not weeks. So I think I can see that happening as well. But I'll pass back to Corey. So,
Yeah, no worries. There's a few things in there around like the whole process, beginning to end, the SDLC. So one of the first things I did actually was map out in Miro how all the different phases and what people were doing and stuff. But on the team size question, and I do generally think we might go to, I think there's 2 general models people are going to focus on, which is, I think someone called it like the Facebook model, where you're going to have an engineering manager manage like 20 teams or people, tiny teams or stuff. So like basically you have tons and tons of people you have to manage, or kind of smaller teams with more of a builder coach sort of model where you're building and kind of managing the teams. Right now I'm kind of doing a hybrid of both, where I still have my engineering manager managing 8 people, but I broke it into 2 smaller sub-squads, and each one of those has like a mission they're going after and a little agent harness that gets paired with it as well. And I forgot all the points I wanted to make, but maybe they'll come back. Here you go.
I think, yes, there will be a shift, not necessarily a reduction, at least not in 1 year. Your mileage might vary depending on the industry. Talking from the point of view of a large bank, I think there's going to be a bit more push and potentially even an increase on stuff on platform engineering, simply because the cost of reinventing how you actually roll out AI for everyone will be too high if you have to do it for every team, if every team has to discover this by itself. On the other end, for example, in Lloyds, we have feature teams scattered across the different business units. And so some of those have right now 4 or even 8 mobile engineers each, which actually they don't use all the time. So those teams can see a reduction, because then, let's say, if I'm a product owner and I need, a couple of features per month, and that's all, 2 engineers might be enough for that.
I always find it, interesting to look at, and I can see myself also playing into this, where I look at a challenge, the team size, the team structure, the organization, and then I kind of adapt my model thinking to, okay, this is what you need, and agent will just increase that. But if you ask me the question, like, if I have to start something tomorrow, anew, unshackle from within the businesses that I'm in, what team composition would I have? What would be my 5 hires, let's say, or even 2 hires? Would be very different than, like, what I would say maybe 2-3 years ago. Yeah, and so, I think the question of the team composition and size, which is one which fits, let's say, and I completely get both of your point, by the way, regulated market and banking is very different. Let's say for you, let's consider 3 years from now, years from now. But like you see, like if you can clearly be more efficient, or like if clearly, maybe I shouldn't say that. If there's a degree of efficiency gain from using AI agent, is the expectation then you can do more with less people, or that you do more things for the businesses that you work with? You see, like, what's the direction you see this taking?
Yeah. To some extent, what was said earlier, like, do more with less is not a new concept. That has been already for as long as I've been in the industry, and I foresee it will be on for even longer, with or without AI. Coming back to your question, if I had to create a new mobile app from scratch now, would I, let's say, still have an iOS developer, an Android developer, a backend, or just a single generalist and a bunch of AI agents. To me, that depends on fundamentally two questions. One is the operational model, because if I am a bank and I have to be on the hook 24/7 and if I don't have an incident resolved in 2 hours, I need to go and present myself in front of the regulator and justify why I denied internet banking or mobile banking to 28 million customers. That might give a different answer from, well, okay, I'm doing a mobile app for, looking for clothes or taking pictures or whatever. Not discounting any of them in terms of value, but just in terms of repercussions on, and responsibilities. So that will form part of my decision.
Like accountability of the code.
And the operational, which is driven also by the operational model. Like if I can afford to say, well, okay, I have an issue with the app. Well, so what? Tomorrow an engineer will come, will take his time and figure it out. I can survive a catastrophic crash in production. Okay, that takes a certain set of stakes. If I have to guarantee that any issue in production is sorted in 2 hours, or else I might lose my banking license, that changes the answer, right?
It's on a complete side note. I'm not sure if anyone's aware. Milei announced that they will allow AI-based company in Argentina, which brings the question as to failure and accountability if it's a machine that decides. But I'm just completely side note. Yes, that brings actually to the next point around specialization. Yeah, it's like if you say, well, if I bring a new. Of course, in mobile, you have cross-platform, this kind of dream that has never been really resolved in any kind of conversation between, the technology leaders, should we go React Native, Flutter, Native, et cetera, not even to bring in the kind of back-end and front-end conversations. And you can see different direction that I see with agentic solutions is do you actually need specialization? Even with Google announcing the ability to port an iOS app by just having an agent saying, build this app in Android, and it will just do it. I mean, just do it. They kind of showed it. Nobody has really played with it, so you don't know if it's real or not. But I'm saying, there's clearly a directional, most likely to do more with less. So where do you see that taking us, from the mobile teams? So if you have, mobile engineering teams, so iOS engineer, Android engineer, and now suddenly you have this kind of new technology that brings new capabilities to your ability as an organization to deliver mobile solutions.
Yeah, so I've kind of been through the whole, we should do Xamarin, we should do this, we should do that, one platform to rule them all. And I've always been very much okay, whatever, we're still going to have the 2 platforms. Until recently, I hadn't seen that demo at Google I/O, but I'm going to have to watch that now. But I do think the tribalism we've built around Android and iOS, that is dying, and you do need to be much more generalist. If you are very much digging your heels in only your specialism and not looking outside of that, I do think you're really going to struggle in the next 5 years. Maybe not the next 2, but we're going to need to be much more generalist again. And I think it's time for the generalist to win. I'm very much here for that, even though I did specialize in Android for a while. Yeah, it's just, if you think about Android, so the only reason there's 2 platforms really is 2 big companies won the phone war. That's why we have 2 platforms. One of them might go away. I don't know. Maybe one of them completely shifts their entire business, let's say Google, to AI, instead of faffing about with an Android ecosystem anymore. It's possible. And Android just doesn't tend to make the same money that the iOS applications do. So the businesses for a very long time have wanted to disinvest. I've been in consulting firms. I've seen a very strong push to nearshore because UK engineers were too expensive. So this, to your point, the trends have been going on for a really long time. And I do think we're getting to a much more fluid translation between different platforms. Maybe that's not immediately right, Kotlin into Swift, but maybe it is extract all the specs and then have it build on any platform you want. So maybe the specs are the language that we actually centralize on in the future.
I think actually the the iOS translation, that's what it does. It kind of translates into specs, and then specs becoming Kotlin code, and yeah, it's quite interesting to see how they did that.
I think also at Google I/O, I was quite fascinated by seeing their agents in 10 hours build an operating system. That would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to sort of bootstrap, and they built it and they got it to play Doom, of course, which I thought was amazing. I think going back to the original thing about disciplines and the tribalness of them, what I've seen personally from using the agents is it's quite easy for an agent to put some code in, and you take a look at it and go, why you added 400 lines of code to do threading and this stuff, and there's like an API for it. So I think there is going to be an element of principal, senior, lead engineers in mobile disciplines, that knowledge and knowing what good looks like and being accountable for its shipping to production, and anything that goes wrong with it means I think the demand for those engineers with 10 plus years experience who've been there for a long time, I think that's going to increase just for the accountability if they're saying that's good enough to go out. But going back to Corey's point, the tribalism as well is going to disappear. But I also think it will disappear a bit for cross-platform, because if having a native iOS app and an Android app is just a difference in the prompt, and there's more documentation and better results from the stuff on GitHub and the material it's learned on, why wouldn't you have a native app if it's just a prompt difference away? So I've seen a bit of that, but we'll see where it all settles. And I do also wonder if we're going to see new platforms, with this technology disrupting. Is Meta going to bring out a phone? We're going to see a Claude phone, a Codex phone, what we're going to see next. So I'm pretty excited. So, yeah.
Maybe Michael can touch on you mentioned about new devices. You see that in the future, so it's like...
It reminded me of something. In terms of new devices, the EU is currently pursuing an effort to become more, to have their technology more sovereign, right? It wouldn't be completely surprising if a mobile operating system spawned out of that. Jola exists. It's nowhere near as big as it needs to be for us to target it, but it does have applications, and anybody could write an application for it. I don't really have a lot of trust in the competency of the EU, and a year is a bit too early, but hopefully that's going to at least develop in a year.
EU time, then it's 10, 15 years from now. It's like EU. Jolia is one of the Finnish operating system, yeah. But that could bring the question up, because I think a lot of decision of businesses, or at least CTO level, when they have to decide cross-platform, historically was cost mainly. It's like, okay, organizational. I remember subsidy were like, if my iOS team doesn't even speak with my Android team, let alone with my backend team, we have all this indirection. So, that's why I need this cross-platform, yeah, because it's easier. So, not necessarily a good argument, but it tends to be one of the argument. And similarly, I remember even like going down the tablet path, where people like, I worked with some businesses, they're like, it's just too costly to maintain, like to introduce, like Chromecast, like all those things that just comes along, and then 6 months later they're not fashionable anymore, and so then they just focus on the main one, where they have their users, and then say, screw the other platform. Do you think we're going to have a shift in that behavior, where it's like, well, actually now is one prompt away to kind of like support glasses or support Julia or something similar, and as such, there's a shift of mentality as to we're going to take, let's say, what a mobile product is and widen that. Do you see that happening?
Has anybody tried to ask one of those AI tools to, wait, I forgot, I lost it. Say it again, the last couple of sentences.
And then do you believe that businesses will be more likely to target new devices because they see it's easier now with agents?
I got it back. Anybody ever tried to use, because I'm actually wondering, okay, an AI tool to get Figma designs for a phone and say, give me the tablet version of that user interface in a way that makes sense? Because, like you said, targeting tablets, too expensive. It's not just coming up with a code. It's like, what should it look like? How to make it usable to the user on a different form factor with a bigger screen that allows you to do more things and stuff like that. I'm wondering about that. Translating from iOS to Android, I wouldn't say easier, but it's a different one completely, right?
Yeah,
Trying to do it in terms of like, what should it look like based on, I already have those drawings here. I would like the same thing, but completely different form factor. I don't know what the result of that is. Anybody has?
I think Tris is like really keen on saying something.
Yeah, just quickly on this. So I think it's interesting at Apple's keynote, they demoed resizable iPhone mirroring and other simulators. So clearly Apple going to go into foldables now and supporting those. And so everything's a tablet and a phone. It's certainly be a future. I have personally tried it. So we've got a prototype we're building internally, and we haven't historically supported tablet when there's an older user base if users wanted to use it. So we got our app to run on tablet. But what's interesting is, say on iPad OS, there's a whole sidebar navigation system that could have taken hours for me to read the documentation to adopt it, but it's just there and it looks quite nice. It could already potentially shippable, so that's exciting. I did try tvOS as well, and the amount of if-defs on like functionality and missing APIs made it a bit of a mess. But but I'd say definitely for supporting tablet, foldable phones, liquid glass, all these changes
You have an iOS background, you're not used to dealing with fragmentation.
No, we got fragmentation as well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But everything's fragmented. So yeah.
I think there are few layers also on that one, because first of all, the user interaction may change. So, for example, the edge between mobile and desktop is getting blurred. You can see it with the new projects from Google, the Android and Chrome OS, iOS doing kind of the same thing. So I don't foresee, as far as I used to be a few years ago, the fact that you could potentially ditch your laptop and come to the office, attach your phone to the big monitor, and work with desktop style app. Not so that triggers the responsive. How do I actually make good use of that extra screen space rather than just making a humongous app, mobile phone app displaying on your screen. I think the other aspect is how users will interact with those apps in terms of not necessarily they will launch an app, again, coming back to how the interaction via agent through the way we do it now. So potentially you have at least some part. I don't think they will go away entirely in 1 year for sure, but you might have some part of which you no longer directly open the app and do stuff. You will have, MCP server, API, whatever mechanism will take the industry standard and say, hey Siri, okay Google, book a table at this restaurant for me and download the Google Maps direction to send them to my car, please.
The please is important.
Yeah, but that's a very profound shift because, for example, it disrupts entirely the app economy where, you have a lot of this, let's get users back into the app, let's make them to stay longer in the app. That goes completely away. Right?
So, I found that someone mentioned intent. People in the introduction, like refocusing your solution around intent, and then, and do you think that innovation, let's say from where you look at, let's say how, like this kind of new pattern of behavior, people moving to, let's say, ChatGPT to do Google searches, yeah, but so you have a change of behavior. Of course, it did not come from Google. They're losing a lot of their, income stream by having this shift of behavior. You're saying there's going to be more of that. So you're not going to open Google Maps, let's say, to find the review of a restaurant. Potentially, you could just ask the product. Do you think that innovation will come from the mobile experiences? or do you think it will sit somewhere else? Do you see as an
I
ecosystem?
think it could come from Google. They're already trying to do that. Apple's trying to do it as well. I think the emerging ones might win in the end. And I think, yeah, I do agree that we're not really just going to have apps that we click through anymore with all the engagement gaming that has been going on forever. I think that's been not beneficial for users as well. So it's nice that we're moving away from that, but I do see, I still use apps a fair bit, but I do use Claude for like basically everything now too. So I don't know, did they say there was a Claude phone? I hadn't heard about a Claude phone, but I'm sure they will.
I mean, I guess if you're already paying a £200 a month subscription for Claude, kind of makes sense they just give you the phone, make sure you lock you in. So I can kind of see that happening. I think one of the other interesting things I've seen, even just on the cusp of the AI, so if you take Barclaycard as an example, they don't have an online account manager for new customers. So I do think, it always used to be the discussion, well, why are we going to build an app that's expensive? Now, if it's not as expensive, are we going to see less web applications being developed and more focus on apps? And because the barrier's been lowered. So.
But are we going to just have emerging apps where it just pops up and does the thing you want and then goes away, like ephemeral?
Yeah, I think so. We've seen that with app functions at Google I/O. Certainly with app intents. I still think it's early days for that, but that's clearly the future. I don't think for apps like Instagram where you're doom scrolling and they want lots of content consumption, that would work. But I think it's interesting is how is that gate kept? Because surely when you're talking and it's choosing which app surface, that's a whole different ballgame in terms of SEO. So.
That brings us in a very into the next topic about. You want to add something?
You can't put an ad blocker inside Claude.
You cannot
put an ad blocker inside.
Maybe if you say, "Do not serve me ads, please."
Yeah, that's gonna work.
But that brings us to kind of trust, sovereignty, and quality. So where we're kind of investing in heavily into a few platforms, Claude, OpenAI, Gemini, like the big tech companies. Isn't there a risk that we're gonna end up in a situation even worse than what we have currently, which is a few tech company controlling the entire market, and we're gonna have even further of that if that is controlling the entire experiences? Is that a concern? Is that something that people
I think this is on purpose. I think part of the reasons why LLM were created in those big companies is to create a barrier of entry to make sure that it will remain an oligopoly, which is bad for everybody except the people in charge of the oligopolies. Those 5 companies will do very well, and the rest of the world not.
Is that something, I mean, maybe without going too extreme, you have already kind of multi-cloud intention when AWS started kind of owning the entire cloud infrastructure with the idea of we cannot rely just on one business. Do you see this happening, or is this completely outside of anyone's thought process at the moment? Anyone wants to
For us, it's definitely a big concern. We had already internally a few chats about that. The truth, at least let's say the status quo, however, obviously, is that right now there is no choice, right? So yes, sovereignty is a big concern. However, let's be honest, right now the only other option is Mistral, and it's far behind where the others are. There is hope, I think, in open source models, and the fact that I think in a year or maybe 2, we will be having both the hardware commoditized enough and the models distributed enough so that there will be a shift from, consuming Claude, Copilot, whatever favorite version from one of the big vendors to run at least most of your workloads in your local AI. There is also another element that is more cost-based. Right? We are still in this drug dealer economy where, fundamentally, is a super subsidized, get 200 a month, and you can get a super coder, and then 5 months down those $200 become like $2,000 per day, and then you will start thinking, okay, how much is this super developer cost? Because possibly I can hire a human for the same amount or even less, and maybe we'll go back competing against machines. So those are, I think, the concerns. But yes, I don't know if the same approach used for, let's say, multi-cloud can be applied to, say, multi-agent. I think there are a few more complexities there, but certainly there are industries, again, because you're in a certain industry might be less concerned on the fact that the data goes to the US or concentrated there than others.
Procurement departments like to have one supplier only.
This sounds like a strange answer for procurement to have, but like I can.
In a company that's big enough to have a procurement department, you're not gonna go with, oh, I want Copilot and I want Claude and Devin, and I'm gonna pay for both of them. They're gonna go, no, one of them. Pick the best one of the two, we'll pay for that one, or the cheapest one of the two, we'll pay for that one. But I mean, contracts with both suppliers is gonna go like, you've got a redundancy problem. This was all about efficiency.
You have something like you were going to say something, Corey? Like, have you seen a spend? Has this been enough spend for you to consider it? Do you see what I mean? Because I feel that at the moment everyone's like, just play and see where it goes. Like it's subsidized, etc., etc. We will enter a point, I think, in which the costs will be discussed heavily at the highest levels. So like, what do we get from this cost? Has this occurred yet, or are you still in the phase of?
Yeah, so to go back to an earlier question as well, they did mandate that you use AI tools, and they had a metrics tracking board. They were bought by a company called Prosus that is very into AI, and they poured a lot of money into tooling, and they have their own tools they're building, TokenClaw and some other stuff. So that was the experimentation phase. That was January to about now. Then we rolled out Claude, but at our scale, you can't get the plans. It is all API costs. So it is pure token costs for us. And like I said, I was doing an agent first one, so I'm the most expensive project. So they're definitely hounding me for money to spend less of it, which I've always made token costs like a key class citizen of my harness. And I do constant audits to make sure it's not wasting stuff and I'm following good approaches and stuff. But yeah, so we almost ran out of our Claude budget. Luckily, we got a cap raise, but yeah, it is growing a lot every month right now. That's partly because there's a lot of people who are now just trying it for the first time, and they're just using Opus, and they don't really know how. That works in Anthropic's favor. They don't, yes, you should theoretically pick the best model for the task, but that's also a lot of cognitive load. Like, why doesn't it just choose the right model? So I haven't yet, but we are looking at leveraging open source models, and anytime we run out of budget, then we'll go use something else. And yeah. So yes, I am currently dealing with that.
Thanks, Corey. I think it's interesting as well as token maxing is a abhorrent term. I do think it's temporary though. The whole token shortages thing. Eventually, Nvidia are doing laptops now where you can run extreme models on your laptop. I think that is going to be the future. And you also see Elon trying to put Starlink data centers into space. So you kind of got to wonder, what is the future of all this? But I think it is temporary.
I think also the new GPUs have the kind of 80 times the ability of compute power. So we'll see. I think it hasn't been a concern to the present.
I think there's more talk about token limitations and running out of tokens than what people want to spend the tokens on building. And I've noticed people often asking AI what to build. They're not, going for a walk, having a think about what to build next. So yeah.
Okay, we're getting to the end of tonight's panel. I think it's been a very long conversation. Thank you so much. I feel maybe for closing kind of thematic around leadership, how, as leader, do you navigate the changes ahead? How do you structure it coherently so you have the engineering team behind you and kind of understand the future. I mean, we can do like one each just answering that question if it's not too difficult. Why don't you start us off? Just you have the mic.
Yes. So how do we navigate the future?
Yeah. So as a leader, you know, like there's a lot of change occurring. I think a lot of anxiety, a lot of people feel that they don't really know where this is going, including jobs and stuff like this. As a leader, how do you navigate this? How do you present it? And how do you structure your leadership to kind of show the way of the future, balancing what's, capabilities of AI with the, requirements from the business and so forth?
I think, from NS London talks we do, which I'll go into in a minute, one of the interesting ones we had recently, I think first of all, as a leader, you've got to make sure you're not overloaded, make sure you're not on every thread, on every topic, reading everything, because you blink, you wake up, there's 2 new models, OpenAI and Claude competing at the same time, and it actually can be jarring, it can actually impair your decision making. It's actually better to be more present, spend more time with your team, more time talking. That's what I'm finding. And what I've seen in one of the recent NS London talks we had at Just Park is what they've done is they've reverse engineered each day-to-day process and built a skill for it, automated it with an agent. And I think that's where you're going to get the most bang for bucks at the moment. So what they've done is they built a code review bot that runs before you push. So it irons out all those things that are going to, slow down the peer review process and fixes it. All the scaffolding you need to build new network layers, to build other things. And I think that's a good first start before you go gun-ho, because I think there's a lot of engineering leaders trying to make the piano play itself, and that's kind of going for gold. Whereas if you could actually say, I'm spending a week of time building all the scaffolding, building network requests, if I could eliminate those, that's a win, that shows business improvement. So I'd start with that and sort of outside in. So yeah, of course.
So I think about this in 2 different ways. There's you as a leader, and what are you doing to prepare yourself for the future? So I decided I was going to do vibe leadership from the beginning, so I very much tried to do everything that I was trying to do as a leader with AI tools instead of doing it the old way. I think
you say vibe leadership?
Vibe leadership, yes.
Oh.
Yes.
I'm gonna reuse that.
Go for it. Also, I was trying to inspire my team to start figuring out how they wanted to run their leadership in this world. I did see a little bit of resistance, so I had asked them to figure out, how do we want to do agentic first workflows? Crickets. So I did the harness thing to kind of show them instead of tell them what to make. So that was part also of my vision, to set what I think is important as we move forward, and then kind of show how we might go there in the end. And there's a few areas where I think thinking about yourself and how you evolve. Connection, like you were saying, is really important. You definitely need to continue to connect. And there's so much information out there. Curation's another one. And then I'm very into creativity. You can come talk to me about that later. But I think that also can really help with your storytelling and making sure that you're adaptable, lean into your curiosity, all that sort of stuff, and just make sure that you're leaning into the moment instead of leaning away, so that you can kind of show the way to others.
Who wants to go next?
For me, there are different, layers on this in terms of there is the human aspect. How do you provide enough support, enough training, enough reassurance to the people that are concerned, will I have, I'm a coder, will I still have a job next year or not? There is also as a manager, as a leader, there is the more long-term thing of, I have my senior engineers at some point anyway, they will either retire or move to another company. How will I make a new senior engineer out of a junior engineer that will never go through the same pain and battle scars that gave that experience to my current senior engineer? Because again, the problem is no longer how to write a very complex piece of code, is how do you judge whether that very complex piece of code is actually very complex and efficient and robust and resilient, or very complex and rubbish. and unnecessarily complex or slow. Again, for me, the focus for these sorts of things is emphasis on the things that remain the same in terms of like system design, operational design. I know it sounds a bit of like a broken record, but those are the things that in the end are what the rubber hit the tire when you put a service in production and you have to be responsible for it. Not only for yourself and for your, let's say, your job safety, but also because potentially other people get severely impacted. Imagine if you are having you just bought a house, you're paying the mortgage, you're completing today, and your mobile banking app doesn't work, and you can't pay that final thing, and your entire mortgage chain collapses. I mean, that's disruptive.
So back to basic, like kind of foundational correct, curation, connection, creativity. I'm going to add to that.
The reason I went from an individual contributor to team leading, a colleague one day told me, since you arrived in this team, the team is happier. And I, at the time, 20 years of writing code, didn't even realize that it could be an objective. And out of that conversation, I went, oh, a minute. So it's still enjoyable to build things with computer and make things work. But it is more rewarding to keep a team happy. So in terms of reacting to unexpected change, that's one of the points of agility. Like agile ways of working are all about reacting to expected change. It's all uncertainty. You still have to make the company run. There are various principles around that. One of them is alignment of purpose. You can't make an agent care about the mission. You can instruct it to do things. You can't make it go the extra mile. And dealing with the people, my reports, I believe, is that what they're called? There we go. Transparency, empathy.
Transparency and empathy.
If you're going to deal with people, start there. Then at least you get some trust along the way. That helps you work. Yeah.
Good.
Psychology of software teams.
Psychology of software teams. Thank you so much. Can we have a round of applause? We're past a bit the time, holding in there for having the conversation for an hour plus. Should we have like quick 1 or 2 questions and then have some drinks and some places? Anyone has a burning question they want to ask? Let me stand up. I feel like I've sat up for way too long. There's 2 up there, then I come to you. 3 questions, then the rest can be at the pub.
Hi. Yeah, nice discussion. Thank you. So my question is, how do you think in the age of AI we will change hiring? Because we will probably not need algorithms and data structures anymore.
I'll give it to Corey.
Oh, I mean,
yeah.
do you have a...
Well, are you going to hire anybody?
So
Again.
I have been in the process fairly recently, and I can talk about how I used it when I was interviewing and how I've been thinking about it in the hiring that I'm doing in my teams, which is not a lot, but some. So I built the harness and then I used it to completely do a take-home test in 2 hours or something like that. So doing a take-home test always was problematic for carers and stuff, but now AI can do it for you. Now you can still catch them not knowing what the heck it's doing, but is that really the best way to find out what they can do? I'm not sure. I've always liked pair programming personally. Attack a problem together, see how they think, see how they work through it. And what I've been doing in my hiring process is I always have a very clear view of what I want out of that hire. So I will have all the questions, and I'll have what good and bad look like. And now I've created prompts to then take the transcripts and turn it into like a high-level summary, which isn't the one that I use as the feedback to the candidate, but it does pull out quotes that show out some of the areas I'm looking for. And then I write up the final summary of it, but it helps me kind of like parse what's going on in there. And that helps both interview a lot, but also have more robust evidence.
Thanks, Corey. I think as well, the days of leak code, I'm hoping are numbered, because that's never been maybe there's a leak agent. I guess we have to build an agent in the interview. That could be a good way of doing it. But going back to the broken record, systems design not going anywhere really as part of the interview process. So, yeah.
Thank you for the discussion first. My question is, now that with the AI, especially at the larger organizations, many people are using for doing very similar work and reinventing the wheel over and over again. And there's a new concept called the context layer for engineering. I would like to hear your thoughts about it, and have you considered or worked something similar to it to reduce the token usage and repetitive work and increasing the developer velocity? Sorry, reducing the time to market.
Is it just to repeat the question?
I think I understood some of it, at least. One of the things I'm trying to build as part of, not necessarily the harness, but like essentially a worldview for the company and a worldview for the architecture. I'm calling it agentic navigation, so the agents know where to go, and then they know what the heck they're doing once they find the repos they're supposed to be changing. So in the building new features, I'm thinking about it that way. I haven't built it, but this is all theoretical at this point, and that's where I'm trying to take it. And then, there was another aspect to it that I forgot, but that's kind of basically, that would just be markdown files, basically to help the agents kind of navigate around. Any other aspects?
So sharing markdown files between different people.
Well, I would just put it in the repos, or make a meta repo that points to all the other things so that it knows where everything is.
I think skills marketplaces as well. Lots of teams doing that. So I guess going back to your question, was it how do you reduce token usage?
I think it was also overlapping work too, right?
And orchestration, I guess, is it? Yeah. Okay. I mean, I've seen a lot of people online building their own AI local clusters, and then when it can't solve it with the smaller models or the quantized models, then it goes off to use a frontier model. And certainly a lot of developers have 40 plus gig of RAM in their laptops. There's ways you can run those smaller things and then shard out from there. So I can kind of see that taking off a bit more.
Hi, question for Corey. You're saying you set up a little a team of agents with your harness. Was there any role that you found was harder, that didn't work so well, that needed more tweaking, that was not as effective or took time to become more effective?
Builders are lazy. I keep having, so it's like, it definitely isn't doing TDD, which annoys me a lot, because it's definitely been encoded in 20 places, and maybe that's part of the problem. But I've been trying to get it to do high quality test coverage. It's doing it kind of afterwards. But maybe we don't have to have it before. It's a design tool for us to think through smaller, more tight architectures and stuff. And maybe agents don't need the same thing, so maybe I'm just burning tokens trying to do it. But yeah, so that one annoys me a little bit. And then for me, I'm not a deep security person, but building out the skills and the role around that was, I think, really good to kind of shift that left. So I made sure that I wasn't doing really dumb things with the harness.
Okay, shall we get the drink? Yeah, shall we wake up a bit? Thanks again for the panelists. Really appreciate it.